Brian, can y'all hear me okay? If I get too loud, let me know. We'll turn this thing down. Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. And I especially though, want to once again mention an old buddy of mine who came all the way from Decatur, Judge Glenn Thompson, who happens to be the father of Klein Thompson. Glenn and I were at Alabama together. Did a lot of Young Democrat stuff back in the days, and it's great to see. I will tell you this though. I don't always feel my age, but when I got the Lifetime Achievement Award, it really began to hit home that I've been around a while, okay? I guess it's been 5 years ago. I gave a brief talk to the college Young Democrats here, and they were meeting here in Birmingham. Some of you may have been at that. Met out in Woodlawn. That was right before the 2012 election, and I started off talking about this. I said, this election is the most important election that we have had so far. And I went on to explain a little bit about why, re-electing President Obama, and how Mitt Romney's plans for taxes and helping the wealthy were not what Democrats stand for. But the main reason that I said it was the most important election was because it was the next election. And that is always the case. The next election, the one that is facing us, is always the most important election. But I will tell you, folks, I'll tell you candidly, Democrats have been given an opportunity by KIV that was beyond our wildest imagination a while back. When originally this election for the U.S. Senate seat was set in 2018, Democrats were wringing their hands. They weren't sure what to do. People had been looking to run for governor, for lieutenant governor, for secretary of state, for attorney general. But when she moved that election up, it has given us an opportunity to focus on one election. The first Senate seat in the Trump era. Think about that. Not only is it the first Senate seat, but it was a Senate seat held by Jeff Sessions. Now that is going to attract a lot of attention. And by doing that for us as Democrats, and I have been toiling in these vineyards for a long time. In fact, some would say for the last 10 or 15 years it's been wandering in the, through the wasteland. Just candidly. We're Democrats, we're hard pressed to find candidates. We have 8 candidates running for the U.S. Senate now. But this election gives us an opportunity to let the people of this state and the country know that the Democratic Party is alive and well and relevant to the issues that mean the most about people in this state. Issues that have to do with jobs, the economy, justice, inclusion, diversity, healthcare. You go through the list. And that's what we're going to be able to do, I think, this time. Because this election is going to open up a lot of eyes. We're going to be able to get out from one end of the state to the other to get people energized. I told a story. Klein talked about all the times, since I've been a Young Democrat here in this county, the Young Democrats with Cumberland School of Law, which really gave me an opportunity. And some of you, I think, have probably had some opportunities. But in those days, we had a little bit more Democrats that came through. When I was in college and when I was in law school, just in law school alone, I had the opportunity to get to know Howell Heflin. I had the opportunity to get to know Joe Biden, who's still one of my friends today. And those set your course. Those are the people that you get to know, that you think, okay, we can do things. We can make sure things happen if we stick to the story. And that's exactly what this campaign is going to be about. The Democratic Party in the state for so many years was really not a party. Everybody was a Democrat when I was growing up. Everybody was a Democrat, which meant we had Democrats on the one hand who stood for civil rights and human rights, and on the other hand they stood in the schoolhouse door. Well, that's not a party. That's just a confederation of people that tried to run under one banner. And with doing that, you don't really have to develop a philosophy. And when Republicans started gaining ground, they did have a philosophy. They did have a cohesive strategy and a party. Democrats failed to recognize that we were becoming a two-party state. Now, for the first time in quite a while, at least since 2010, we've got an opportunity to make sure that the Democratic Party is alive and well and represents what the Democratic Party stands for. Remember, it was the Democratic Party that passed Social Security, that passed Medicare, that passed Medicaid, that passed equal rights, civil rights. All of those citizens' movements were started and led by Democrats. We're going to make sure in this campaign that we stay true to those same ideals. We're not going to try to get bogged down on other issues. We want to talk about the things that are important to every American. I've been telling folks wherever I go, I want to make sure that I give the same stump speech in the Black Belt of Alabama as I would in Blount County. Whether it is to young or old, black, white, or Hispanic, they're going to hear basically the same thing from me. And this is an opportunity for young Democrats to energize, because the next election cycle and the one after that and the one after that are going to be the ones that we can truly make bigger differences than just one Senate seat, just one U.S. Senate seat. This is that avenue. This is that opportunity to start getting out, registering voters. I see we've got voter registration up here. There were folks that I saw, there were 2 or 3 different booths at the Pride Festival this weekend that was registering voters. You know, we've got to register both young people, and there's another whole class of folks out there who are going to get to vote for the first time. The legislature passed a bill recently clarifying crimes of moral turpitude. And there are people out there, a lot of them, who have been denied the right to vote because a registrar said you've been convicted of a felony. They have that right. We need to be out there seeking those people. Those folks have just as much right to vote for their officials as you or I do, that may not have had those convictions, but they have been denied that right. We've got to make sure that we have a U.S. Senator who can work with both sides of the aisle, but not back down from anybody. We've got to make sure that in the coming, I guess it's a 3-year term, that we have a Democrat in that seat who can stand up to what's going on in the White House. Now, I'm not going to get into tonight everything that's happened with Senator Jeff Sessions' testimony today. I haven't seen all of it, so I'm just not going to comment. You know, what I told one of the news stations this morning is that, you know, he kind of put himself in a tough spot with his testimony, and the president put himself in even a tougher spot. We have some serious... My problem with the Attorney General doesn't have anything to do with James Comey. I'm more concerned in that investigation, not about whether or not Trump fired him for reason or not reason. What's getting lost in all of this political noise is that this investigation is about whether or not Russian government officials at the highest level tried to influence, and in fact may have influenced, the election for President of the United States. Folks, it doesn't matter what side of the political aisle you're on. Everybody in America ought to be concerned about that. Everybody in America ought to be concerned, because it goes to the very heart of our democracy. And let me just say this. For those that, I just hate today's partisanship when people feel like they have to take sides. When you're talking to people, don't worry about taking a side in all this. Just talk about facts, real facts. Talk about that investigation. And when people start wanting to take a side, just say, well, wait a minute. I want to talk about what is going to happen. How are they going to correct that issue? Because, look, I've been in the Justice Department. I know how these things go. With that investigation, they will then, it's going to go down, and they're going to look, and they're going to see if there was any collusion or not. Nobody knows that at this point. But that will shake out. Nobody knows if anybody tried to obstruct justice. That is all going to shake out. Let it take its time. But never lose sight of the fact of what this investigation is about. because it is really serious. And to all of your really conservative friends out there who want to just defend Trump, pull them back to that and say, let me tell you something. Your hero, Ronald Reagan, is probably doing backflips in his grave right now, thinking that the Russians had any influence at all on the election of the President of the United States, because they're forgetting all about that. Folks, I'm going to be here for a little bit. Let me just close my remarks with a couple of things. We need Democrats out there beating the Bushes. It doesn't matter. Obviously, I'm running, and I want everybody in this room to get out there and beat the Bushes for me. But the most important thing is we need to make sure that we keep the energy level going that we know is out there. I tell the story that for the last few years, my wife Louise and I have tried to get our kids raised and get them in college and in graduate school and start playing with two little absolutely gorgeous granddaughters. Okay? But with this election, it is time for us to get back in the game. And we started looking at this and saw this opportunity. And on Inauguration Day, for the first time I can remember, because I've been such a political junkie, for the first time I can remember, I couldn't even watch TV. I couldn't bear to see what was going on, even though I respected the process. The next day, though, on Saturday, I had to meet a client. Many of you probably were downtown or somewhere else at the Women's March. I was downtown inside an office, and all of a sudden I heard singing and chanting, and I looked around, and there were literally thousands of people taken to the streets of Birmingham, not of which I've ever seen before, at least since the marches of the early 60s. We have to continue to capture that energy. We have to continue to hold people accountable, hold candidates accountable, hold our public officials accountable, and when we can do that, if we do that, the Republicans are going to take care of themselves, but if we can do that, I promise you that we are going to work hard enough that come December, Alabama is going to have a Democrat in the United States Senate for the first time since 1996, and it's going to be me. So I need your help, and I need your help.